Welcome to the in-between,
where shift happens,
the moment between where we are
and where we are going.
We will ask all the questions,
maybe find some answers,
and generally work at being okay.
The mystery of the in-between.
And today we are talking about books to live by. So this is the in-between, and typically one of us comes with questions on a topic that we've agreed on. We've not discussed the questions before. We kind of just throw the other one right into the middle of the in-between, trying to figure out how do you answer these questions?
Right.
Which is a whole lot like being in the in-between in life, where we're trying to figure out how to do all this stuff. But today we decided to do it a little bit different. Today we are bringing our top 3 book lists, at least for right now. I'm sure they'll change. If we were to do this in a year from now, it'd probably be different. But as of right now, our top 3 book picks each, and we're going to talk about what they are and a little bit of why. And so I think we'll just jump in here.
Yeah.
Ryan, we'll do a countdown. So we'll start with our number 3 pick, and then we'll go to our number 2 pick, and then we'll drum roll, please.
Drum roll. This is hard. It was hard to come with just 3. But I thought about what are the 3 books that I read over and over and over and over and over again. So that kind of solidified my list.
Mm-hmm.
So the following books, well, obviously we're going back and forth, but so all these books are ones that I read over and over again. And to find something new every time. So number 3, and is Rooted by Leonda Lynn Hope, and it is called Rooted: Life at the Crossroads of Science, Nature, and Spirit.
It's a good one.
This is a book that I read all the time. I think because it's really interesting, especially if I'm outside in nature, like I'm going on a walk, or I'm going to be sitting in the woods, or even camping. I reread the whole book once camping. There's just something beautiful about it. This interesting, coming back to nature, our roots, the thing, the land itself. It's kind of like coming back to life itself. And so it's really interesting because I think sometimes we think that life is all these segments of things, oh, here's the nature, and here's what's over here, and here's our spirituality, and here's our work, all the things.
Yep.
And this book just really just melds all the things into this kind of one experience. And it also really encourages you to pay attention.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that's the thing that I forget. You go walking around, or, out and about in life, or out and about in the world, or whatever. And sometimes you don't pay attention. I know I don't. And so this is just really all the things that can be opened up when we pay attention. That when we return back to nature. And she just beautifully describes that experience for her. And I don't know, it's one of those books where you read it and you can just smell nature as you're reading.
Yeah, for sure.
And she talks about, where she lives, there's a place that she always goes, and she knows it so well that she knows the bird, the birds that are going to show up, and she can tell which bird is what, and the tree, and the sound it's going to make when it, and all the things. And so it really invited me to do that in my own life. And so I have this tree in our yard that I go to, and it's the same birds that come, and it has the same smell, and it has the, it's just I don't know, it's like a friend. And so this book is just like a friend. It's one of those books. And so that's for me. And I reread it often when I need to just reset. This is a good reset book for me.
Yeah.
And she reads a lot. I mean, she wrote a lot of other books that I'm also reading, but this is the one that really does it for me.
Yeah, you turned me onto this book a while ago, and so when I was going through the list of books and looking at my bookshelf and going man, to pick 3, that's tough.
Yeah.
That was definitely on my, first it was a list of top 15 or top 20.
Right. Yeah, but we only have so many time, right?
Yeah. But that was definitely like my top 5 was that one. And I was like, I wonder how many of the books I pick Ryan will also pick.
Mm.
But you turned me on to this one a while ago, and yeah, it was definitely that, like, my takeaway was that idea of like paying attention to like transitioning from inside to outside and from this space to this, like that everything is, there's not really an inside and an outside and a here to there. It's all the same
Yeah.
thing. It's all, I don't know, we're moving through all the same stuff all the time, and it's not really designated with separation like I think it is, or that we're taught it is, or whatever. But it's really, it's all the same thing. It's all one. but like, but like that, it really is. It really is all one experience.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, I love that idea of it. It smells
Mm-hmm.
like nature. Like it
Yes.
does. It really, the words smell like nature. I don't know how to. It really
It's
does.
great. It's a great book.
Yeah.
All right, you're number 3.
Yeah, my number 3. My number 1 was pretty clear, but my number 2 and 3 were like, it could be a toss up between either one. But I think that my number 3 is The Myth of Normal.
Mm.
Like, this is a big chunky book.
It's a good one.
It's not an easy read. It's by Gabor Mate and his son. But man, I don't know. It's one of those books that in a lot of ways, like, it put into words so many thoughts that I had been like, thoughts and like half thoughts that I had been tossing around for like, felt like for a long time. And it just put context and clarity, like brought everything together and said like, yeah, this is, think about, if you think about things a little bit differently, all of a sudden a whole lot of stuff makes sense.
Yeah.
And it really goes through like all of the things that have just been considered normal for like ever or for decades or centuries are just totally made up.
Yeah.
And most of them are not normal at all. Like no one, like, through medicine, here are the norms of like, whatever the base stats are, were just based off of some limited group of people that maybe they studied a long time ago, but didn't take into consideration any other variables. Or like the normal, the norms in pregnancy and birthing and like all this, I mean, just things all over the place of like what's been considered normal and why, and how nonsensical it is. Just like it, and then it, it kind of got me thinking differently about things that just showed up regularly in my life. And it's like, oh, it, kind of, it sparks that curiosity of like, I wonder why I think about that way. And is that really true? Like just everyday experiences, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like things that I would consider like common courtesies. Like, well, why do I think that everyone should do that? And why do I get upset when they don't? Like, oh, that's a normal thing that people should be doing. Why aren't they doing that? And
Like what's underneath all of those, like, our ideas of
yeah,
normal. Yeah.
yeah. And so, I mean, like normal, like nothing's normal. There is no normal. Like, was it? I guess it was like through the lockdown, and we're like, oh, there's a new normal. We're getting to a new normal. There was no normal.
Or
And there's
going
not going to
back
be
to
a
normal.
Yeah,
Back to normal.
going back to normal. Yeah, there was no normal, and there's not going to be a new normal. That there is, like, what a made up idea that there even is anything to be considered normal.
Yeah.
I guess there are things that are common, but certainly not like
typical and atypical.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's either this or that, and if it's not
Right.
one or the other, you're doing it wrong, or it is wrong, or something wrong with you. And it's like, no. You are you, and being you is authentic and real, and I mean, and he does, get into that towards the last like quarter of the book is all like, all right, well, now what? What do you do now with it? And part of that is, how to be authentically you. How do we be authentically people in a world that says you're supposed to fit into this little box?
Yeah.
So it's pretty brilliant.
It's a
Not
good
gonna
book.
lie. It's
It's
a good book. Not gonna lie though, I did the audiobook for at least 2 of the times through it.
Yeah, I love audiobooks. It's interesting, like hearing it and just kind of relaxing into the words.
Yeah.
That's what I like to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like there's something very comforting for me of like listening to the audiobook and reading along with it, like seeing it and hearing it at the same time. It makes my brain happy.
Excellent.
Yeah, so
Good
that's good.
book, good book.
Yeah. All right, number 2.
All right, so here's the caveat, because I can't, like, these are 2 books, but they have to go together,
Uh-oh.
and so this is my number
Uh-oh.
2. I think you know what I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
So, number 2 is Psalm for the Wild Built, which is one book, and then its sequel is Prayer for the Crown Shy, both by Becky Chambers. This book, I mean, in this time in which we are living, March
Oh.
4th, 2025, just for those who may be listening to this in the
Oh,
future,
happy
like,
marching band day, March 4th.
oh, nice, nice. These 2 books, I don't know, it's hope punk is the genre, and it is like this idea of like, what if things work out? Like, what is
Yeah.
possible?
Yeah.
It's, the sci-fi, like, what is possible? And it's just 2 beautiful books about what is possible when we're able to show up authentically, when capitalism is no longer this driving force,
Yeah.
that we live in community. What does it mean to live in community? What does it mean to support? What does it mean to both take from and contribute to a community, and like the beautiful discovery that happens? I mean, the books are just, for me, they're life changing.
Yeah, literally.
And there's a couple of well, I think one of the most like life changing parts of it. I'm not going to go like, because I want everyone to read these 2 books. So I'm not going to
Yeah.
like no spoilers, but there's one part where one of the characters is talking about purpose, and the other
Mhm.
character is like, "What? Why are you so?" These are terribly paraphrasing, but like, why are you so caught up in this idea of purpose?
Yeah.
That our purpose is that we don't have a purpose.
Yeah.
Our purpose is the one, we don't have one, but like we just are, and that's wonderful. And there's
Yep.
nothing that we can do to make that us more wonderful or less wonderful. It's just like it's this really interesting, beautiful story. And like I said, there are 2 books and their continuation. Just beautiful story about life with
Yeah.
no purpose, and like what that looks like to live in that. And I'm just telling you, it has been like a sanctuary in
Mhm.
times, both of these books, in times of like challenge,
Dude,
especially when
to say
we,
the least.
yeah, I mean, especially when we live in systems and frameworks that we're like, man,
Yeah.
I wish it could be better. And what would it look like? What would it feel like? And these 2 books are what it would feel like
Yeah.
if everyone was seen and
Mhm.
heard,
Mhm.
and everyone was valued, everything was valued.
Yeah.
It's just a beautiful story of like crumbling and resurrection and what comes from that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I can't
Well,
say enough about it. And I'm like super like, I want to say mad, but not mad, but like, come on now, write a book 3 in this
right?
series.
I know. I know. Well,
So
I
it,
cheated.
you
They
cheated.
were both my number 1, and I'm like, this is like Ryan's gonna pick the same thing. I know it.
These are my number 2. So, but,
Oh, they're your number 2. Oh, so both of them are number 2.
correct.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll go out of order because they were both my number 1. It was a toss up between those 2 and another book, but the other one got my number 2. Um, so I'll go slightly out of order because you picked them, and I knew
You
you'd pick
just
them.
gotta mess it up.
I knew
Go
they'd. Yeah,
ahead.
we're calling it an audible.
That's all right.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, there really isn't. There really aren't words to encompass how life changing these books have been, because I think it offered context and language for, like, I know there's something else possible here,
Yeah.
and I know all these things around us probably need to change for that to happen. but I don't really know what that looks like. I don't really know what that possibility is, and that's a really uncomfortable place to be. That's a really like scary feeling to kind of live with. Like does everything need to fall apart and then what? Like, oh my god.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is like, oh, here is one possibility of how perfect it can be for
Yeah.
things that are not working to fall away.
Yeah.
And here's what one way that we might replace those things. This is one thing it might look like. And it was like just brilliant. Like, oh wow, that seems so obvious now. But without having, you know, without really having like thought through like what, I don't know, or seen or lived or whatever that possibility, you don't know. And now in my mind has that as a possibility, which has led to, numerous other thoughts and possibilities in my mind about what's possible if and when the things that aren't working kind of crumble and fall away. And it's like, oh my God. And the one scene that really stuck with me is there's something where it kind of talks, without giving too much away, it talks about how if somebody is not able
Mm.
to participate in or contribute to the society for a period of time in the way that they were, that it's not like, right now it's like, oh, well, you're on your own and you go homeless and
Right.
it's not good. But in this world, it really talks about how compassionate the society is, and really leans into curiosity, like, oh, what, hey, we haven't heard or seen so and so for a while. Why don't we check on them and see what's going on? And they do, and they find out that something not good is happening, and so that they go and then support this person, and like, yeah, that's a really good reason why you're not able to do the things you were doing before.
Yeah.
Let's help you, right? It's like, oh, again, super obvious once it's said, once you read it, but it's like, yeah, that is like, what a different world to live in.
Yeah. It's beautiful. And it's like one of those things that you don't like these 2 books is like you don't want it to end.
Yeah, I really do want
And not
another
just the
one and
book,
another
but
one
just
and another
like the feeling that it feels like to live
one.
in the
Mhm.
space that's created through these books.
Yeah. Yes, I want to go there and live there and do that.
Yeah. So,
All right.
Psalm for the Wild-Built
Yeah.
and Prayer for the Crown-Shy
Yeah.
by Becky Chambers. And anything that Becky Chambers writes, actually.
Yeah.
But run, not walk, to purchase said books
At your local
because
bookstore, like, right now. Yeah.
yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
at
You
your
can you
local
can you can pause this podcast and go buy those books right
right
now,
now.
and we'll wait.
At
All right.
your local, community supported bookstore,
That's right.
uh,
That's right.
buy these books.
That's right. All right, so you're number 1.
My number 1, drum roll everyone,
Mhm.
um,
Feel like
is
we need a soundboard with
yes.
this.
My number 1 is Undrowned, Black Feminist
Yeah.
Lessons
Yep,
from
yep.
Marine Mammals, and that is by Alexis Pauline Gumbs.
Uh,
I this book, it's one of those books that will just, shakes you to your
mm,
core,
yeah.
in a good way. I mean, in a way that's like, "Oh, wow." It for me, it made me rethink everything.
Mm,
It just made me rethink, like, the world, the systems, my own privilege, um, what it means to, um, overcome, like, it just is one of those I can't even, like, describe it enough, um,
yeah.
and it's beautiful because, it's written by, someone and kind of from the perspective of a person of color, which is a different experience from me, which was so
Mm,
beautiful to really just be immersed in that experience, in that perspective.
yeah.
It really opened my eyes to a lot of things. Like, and I think that's what happens when you read books from people, from authors with different life experiences, or storylines that have characters with different life experiences and different perspectives. I don't know, it just shook me in a really good way, and I
Mhm.
read it and then reread it, like, without
Immediately.
stopping.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just because it was that good, and not only that, but it pulls from, marine mammals too, and so it's this beautiful interconnectedness too,
Yeah.
and this, coming back to the land, the sea, the animals, the relationship that our, um, ancestors had with the land, the relationship that indigenous people have with the land and with the things that are in the land and sea, right? And that beautiful relationship, and
Mhm.
how in lots of ways we've lost that relationship. And this is a beautiful, just, and they're little like vignettes about that relationship, and ways that we can reclaim and fall back into that relationship. It was just beautiful. I can't go, like, I'm just gonna reread it now, now that, because I haven't
Like,
reread
as
it in quite
soon as we
some
get off
time.
here.
So I'm like, this is a book I just need to reread now because it is beautiful. And yeah, there are some parts of it that are like, oh wow. There's some challenging parts, and there's
Yeah.
some heartbreaking parts to it. But that's life, right? And it's really
Yeah.
beautiful,
Yeah.
ebb and flow, I think.
Yeah. There's
Another, like, if you don't have this one, stop the
yeah.
podcast now and go get Undrowned, by Alexis Pauline Gumbs.
Yeah. That was another one on my list. There's such an artistry to it, like, to the
Mm,
way that it's written,
mm,
where you're like, you feel like, at least I did. I felt like I was like living the life of whatever, you know, marine mammal she was talking about in that section. You're like living that life, and then all of a sudden you realize that is like parallel to the
yeah.
experience of, whatever moment in history, or like experience of a people, and or it was just like, oh my god. And the direct relation to, the parallels between like what we're doing to each other, to what we're doing to the planet, to yeah, I don't know. There's an artistry and a beauty to it that is like, it's like staring at like a masterpiece painting.
Mm,
You kind of can't really put words to it.
yeah. Well, it was
Um,
cool. I think you and I were, well, you were reading it for the first time and I was rereading it, but we were on
on
the
I
beach
was just gonna say, yeah, yeah,
reading this book,
yeah.
and it's
Oh my
like,
god.
oh,
So if you have the opportunity to read this book on the beach, it is also like a whole other experience, because
yeah. I mean, it's like,
you're
oh,
hearing it and smelling it and listening to it at the same time that
yeah,
you're
it's like
reading it.
surround sound. It's a
Yeah,
surround sound.
that was
Yeah,
very
it
cool.
was a good book.
Yeah, good stuff.
All right, you're number 2 since you had to do it different.
Yeah, that did different. Well, it was, I feel like any of my top, like, probably 10 could have easily been in the top 1. I
Mhm.
mean, they were all so good. Um, Undrowned didn't make my top 3, mostly because I knew it was gonna be in yours. I was like, "We can't have all of them the same." So,
That'd be pretty funny if it was, though.
yeah. So my top 1 is See No Stranger by
Was that
Val
your top? Is that your
well,
2? Yes, your
I
2.
guess it's actually my 2. I don't know. It's whatever one you want. You pick the order.
I got
Is See No Stranger by Valerie Kaur. And this
yeah.
was like, I don't know. I don't know that I really have words to describe this book. It was probably one of the most challenging books I've read, because you can't read it and not look at your own shit, and look at
Mm,
the things we have done in the world, the things that have happened in the world, the things that are still happening in the world,
yeah.
and how easy it is for those of us in certain privileges to just ignore it. But oh my god. So like I would read, I would like dive into it and then like have to put it down for like weeks and then pick it
Yeah.
back up. And and go again and put it down and process and like, but man, what a powerful book to really explore. I don't know. I don't even know what the words for it are, but to like really explore like what impact we really have on each other, whether we want to realize it or not. Right. Like, I think
Yeah.
it's really easy for me to read a book and get wrapped up in me and my experience and what does it mean and how do I relate to the world around me and how I'd love for it to change and what could be possible. That's really different than like forcing yourself to face the impact that I have on everyone else around me
Yeah.
and the impact that we all have on everyone else around us, and that we are not strangers. Like, you know, I am you, you are me, everyone that I see, like we are so the same being. Um, and so to come face to face with that, like, oh man. So I highly, highly recommend this, and also like with a little bit of caution and pacing and being really gentle with yourself. And like the root of the book is like this idea of revolutionary love.
Mm.
If we can all just lean into revolutionary love and like actually care about, realize that we have the ability to care about each other, and that in some ways we're tasked with caring about each other. Like that's kind of one of the that's part of the gig, right? That's part of why we're here. Um, if there were a purpose, it might be.
It might be that.
Yeah. How different would it be if we
Yeah.
all recognized that we are a part of each other?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I love that. And I also love books that where you do have to like read it and put it down and like
Yeah. Yeah.
process it and let it kind of seep into your pores. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's a kind of book that does that for sure.
It does. Absolutely. Absolutely. So she just came out with a second book this past fall. I have it on my shelf. I'm sure that will be equally as good. Uh, but making my way through the stack of books before I get there. But um, yeah, definitely another one that's like while you're at the store picking up
Pick
the
pick
Becky
up all the
Chambers.
books that she's
Yeah,
written.
yeah, yeah. This one too. And I believe we have bonus content. So those are our top three. But I know I have an honorable mention. I think you.
I do. I have an
Yeah.
honorable mention, and this is an oldie but goodie.
Mm.
And I would encourage, well, you can read it or do audiobook. I've done both. It's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. That's my honorable mention
Yeah.
because it's just great. It's great hearing him read it too, and it's like so simple but so true. Of like, we have just certain amount of energy and bandwidth and things that we can give attention to, and we have to be really intentional about what those things are. And so it's a great book. Don't let the title like dissuade you. Actually, let it encourage you because it's
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
really great. It's a great book. It's a great book for just navigating all the things in life and the expectations not only of ourselves and others. And it's really a book about being gentle with that and being
Yeah.
intentional. So yeah, that's my honorable mention. I love
All
that.
right. Well, here's another Audible because I can't use that one.
Was that your honorable mention? That's really
Yeah.
funny. That's funny.
That was one of the first books that I read that really gave me permission to use language that is my own
Oh yeah, for
and
sure.
not have to like use the language that the in group was using or that
Yeah,
this
I
crowd was
loved it.
using or whatever. And it's like, no, you just say it in a way that makes sense. Like,
Yeah, it's great.
yeah.
Yeah.
So actually then, kind of in that same vein, especially around language, is this other book that was also, I'm like, I don't know, this is kind of a nerd book. Like I can't put this on my list,
Uh-oh.
but it's actually a book we did a series on a couple years ago, and it's called Developing Ecological Consciousness.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, so
Good stuff.
it's technically like a graduate level like textbook on like ecology. But it doesn't read like a textbook. It reads
No.
more, it's like somewhere in between being a textbook and a novel, but
Yeah.
it really goes into like the science of interconnectedness, right? I mean, it talks about like from a scientific perspective, like the creation of everything that is like there was the Big Bang, and everything that exists now was part of like this incredibly dense tiny ball like that weighs as much as the entire universe, like the size of a golf ball, that exploded, and like everything that is now came out of all of that.
Yeah.
And into like concepts like we don't live on planet Earth, we live in planet Earth, we are
Yes.
planet Earth. Like,
Yeah. I love it. That's
oh
a
my
great
god,
book.
yeah. So it was so good, and again for me it was the language. Like it provided language to talk about concepts that felt really far out there and really like removed, like
Mhm.
either very like theoretical and philosophical, or like deeply spiritual, but like you couldn't like I couldn't really find the words to make it make sense. And this was like, oh, here,
There
have
it is.
have these words, and you're just like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, it's a great book. It's just
Yeah,
yeah, it's a great book
fantastic,
all the way around.
fantastic book. And we do have a series. If you search YouTube or something somewhere, I don't know, it's out there somewhere. I'm not sure where. But
It's on YouTube.
yeah, it's on YouTube. We did do a series on this book, Developing Ecological Consciousness, and it is fantastic book, great series, really really good information. Also highly recommended.
Seems like we read the same books. It's
Yeah, it's almost like we talk about it a lot with each other.
Yeah, but all these books are great. Now I want to go and reread all of them. Maybe
All of
that's what
them.
I'll do.
Yeah.
I never can get new books. I keep on rereading the books that are so
I
impactful.
know. Well, yeah. Well, and I'm sure that anyone who reads a lot, like this is probably fairly common, where like I have a stack of books on my nightstand that keeps growing and growing, and I'm like, these are the ones I'm going to read next. Except it just keeps growing taller and taller, and I don't seem to be making.
Any
Even though I'll finish a book and read another one, I'm not making any progress through that stack of books.
Okay, so before we go, what is the book you're reading right now?
Oh god, I'm reading like 3. So I'm in the middle of Becky Chambers' other series of books, Small Angry Planet books.
Ah, yes. Wayfarer
Amazing.
series. The Wayfarer
Um,
series, yeah.
yeah, in the Wayfarer series. I am also attempting to finish my way through Parable of a Sower, shameless plug, we were reading for a book, a group that we host called the Band Book Club. It is a fantastic group. It meets periodically for a couple weeks at a time on books that are banned, or probably would be if the people who are banning books knew about them. If you're interested in a banned book club, it's online. It meets virtually. You can be anywhere you want. You can check that out at soulevolutioncollaborative.org. Go to events, and it'll be in there. So Parable of the Sower, that's another one of those like for me, I'd
That's a hard book. It was a
pick it
hard
up
book.
and read a little bit and have to put it down, and pick it up
Yeah.
and read a little bit and have to put it down.
Yep.
Probably because of like, it's not for me, it's not the book that is that hard. It's that it is talking about right now. Like both literally and also like metaphorically. I mean, the time of like this book was written in like the 70s, and it's talking about 2024, 2025.
Yeah.
And the things it's talking about are happening in a lot of ways, and that is scary.
Well, and the second one, that follows that Parable of the Talents. Ooh, I got halfway and I had to put it down. I hadn't picked it back up again, but it's
Yeah.
also challenging.
Yeah.
Great. I mean, great writing. Amazing.
Yeah.
Octavia Butler, amazing. All right,
Yeah.
you said another. What's the other one?
I don't know. I don't remember.
So right now I'm reading or listening to Learning to Walk in the Dark by Barbara Brown Taylor. And it's really good. If you've ever Barbara Brown Taylor was an Episcopal priest and then left the priesthood for academia. And so she wrote a book that I read, Holy Envy, which is fabulous. And then this one is also equally as fabulous. It's this idea of this dichotomy that especially in spiritual stuff, we talk about the light and the dark. and the dark is the bad and the light is the good. And this really just kind of throws all that out the window and really just talks about the supportive nature of both light and dark. Not only like actual in our lives for things to grow, but also emotionally, spiritually, mentally, all the things. It's a great book. I'm almost finished with it, but it's really, really good. It's really brilliant to listen to. The author reads it, and it's really great. Barbara Brown Taylor. Anything she writes is great too.
Yeah. The other one I started a while ago and then ended up putting down was Lies My Teachers Taught Me. Is that the name of it? Lies Our Teachers Taught Us? I don't remember. But it's like, all the stuff that was taught in school that's like just crazy wrong. I read it years ago, and it's one of those ones that like sits on my bookshelf and stares at you, and it's like I need to reread that.
Read me again.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this was fun.
It was fun, and so much for it being a short episode. I was like, oh, this will be a short, easy one.
We always got lots to say.
Always lots to say. Yeah. Well, hopefully y'all have enjoyed being here in the in-between with us, and we're kind of like everybody else in the in-between of life and all the things, and so we're going through it together, and hopefully some of these books might help you go through some of that in between, and we'd love to hear from you and about your journey and your experience in the in-between, and of course we will see you next time right here on the in-between, where shift happens.
Nobody really enjoys being in the in-between.
But thanks for being here anyway.
We may not have found all the answers,
But certainly some. And maybe more importantly,
a little shift has happened.
and the beauty of it all is that we are not alone in the in-between.
So until next time, we hope a lot of shift happens.